City of Stillwater Transportation Manager, Dr. Jason Peak, joins us on Conversations With. Welcome to the webisode.
Thank you, Chris.
Let's start with city streets. How would you rate their condition right now?
Well, Chris, we have a recently completed inventory of all our streets last year. We do this by hiring a firm that has specialized equipment that monitors the number of cracks, the rutting, the structural integrity of our major streets. And overall, they give us a condition score on a scale of 0 to 100. And so the entire 440 lane miles of streets in the city of Stillwater currently rank at about a 78, which puts a lot of the streets in the good category, but that also means we've got streets that are in that poor or fair condition in need of repair.
Is there an optimum grade that you guys would like to have?
I think we want to be in that 78 to 80 range. We definitely want to reduce the number of what we call failed streets. These are streets that have gotten to a condition that reconstruction is the only viable option. We've done that on a lot of streets around town. 3rd Street last year, Doty, Arrington. You saw what we've done on Jardo Road and 19th Avenue. Those were all streets that basically had not had regular maintenance, had deteriorated to a point that the only thing that was viable was to actually rip those streets out and rebuild them. Now, of course, that's very expensive cost to do that. We're talking probably $150 a square yard is the average reconstruction cost. While there are other streets that are in that good to fair range that we can do less costly treatments, let's say, in the $4 a square yard upwards to $12 a square yard that allow us to extend the life of those pavements. The example I like to talk about is everybody has a car, right? And those cars, you've got to do an oil change, and on the outside that car looks great, and after 5,000 or 3,000 miles you're doing that first oil change. Well, our streets are no different. We have a brand new road out there. 3 to 5 years we're going to need to do some crack sealing on that road. If we don't do that crack sealing on the road, that road will continue to deteriorate. But by doing that crack seal, we can extend the life of our street.
Okay. The city recently approved its fiscal year budget for 2013-2014. Approximately, I think, $4 million or so was set aside for road projects. Can you describe Stillwater's pavement management strategy and how that's going to work?
We'll be making a recommendation to the council on Monday, June 17th for what we call our FY14, the recent budget project that includes multiple strategies to manage our pavement system. So going back to that car example, we have your car needs an oil change, but at a certain point in life it may need brake repair, transmission repair, more expensive. We've got that same level of inventory with our streets. We've got some streets that we need to do just kind of routine maintenance, crack seal, preventative maintenance type activities, strong repairs, all the way down to the reconstruction that we talked about before. So the council will receive a report on Monday night that basically breaks the streets, is about 80 lane miles worth of pavement out there, into preventative maintenance, what we call rehabilitation. These are asphalt or concrete streets that need some type of repair. It could be replacing panels on a concrete street, or an asphalt street. We may go in and mill just a portion of that existing surface and put a new asphalt down. The other treatment strategy is what we call reconstruction, and like I said, that's where we have to go in, dig the street up and rebuild it from the ground up. And then the last category is what we call deferred maintenance. These are areas on streets that have gotten into that failed conditions that we just need to go in and make some very spot, targeted repairs to extend that life until we're ready to have enough funding to, reconstruct and repair that street.
Are there any areas of the city that we were looking at? I know that the major arteries and secondary arteries seem to be in pretty good shape, but it's like the local neighborhoods.
Sure. This project has a heavy concentration of local streets. There are a few what we call collector or higher traffic volume roads included, but probably about 95% of the streets recommended of those 80 miles are local streets within our neighborhoods. We've done a great job in the city with the half-cent transportation sales tax in repairing and rebuilding a lot of our major collectors and arterials. If you think about 12th Street or Washington Street, basically Hall of Fame North, Jardo, 19th Avenue, those types of projects that have been funded through that half-penny sales tax, we've added capacity by widening those streets, but at the same time we've reconstructed, basically brought an entire new service life for those pavements to service in the future. And since we've addressed those, we're kind of moving back into our local streets. Now, our local streets also make up about 70% of our inventory, that total 440 lane miles. And so, as far as total square yards, we have a lot more local streets than we do our arterials and collectors in the city.
You mentioned the half-cent sales tax. Obviously, it provides enough money to do the basic maintenance, probably. Do we have to seek other funding sources at times?
Sure. The pavement management project that we've been talking about, all this repair work that's going to be done over the next year on our streets, that's being funded out of our general fund. Basically, as we went through the budget process, we're able to dedicate those funds. The half-penny sales tax had a number of specific projects listed in it that tied to our long-range transportation plan. Jardo and 19th Road, that reconstruction is one of those types of projects we're wrapping up. The last project out of the existing sales tax will be the widening and reconstruction of Country Club Road, basically from 6th Avenue north to the city limits, which also ties to a county project that will widen that road from the city limits north to Lakeview. So basically the existing half-cent sales tax expires in 2016. City issued bonds basically to pay for those projects, and so the debt service as well as the remaining project will consume the remaining funds through 2016. Long term, we do need to look at a more sustainable funding source for the maintenance of our streets. If you think about that life cycle of streets, we will constantly be needing to repair the existing streets, not add capacity, not widen, but just take care of what we've got. We've got to have a funding source to do that. Looking at our inventory, that funding need is somewhere in the neighborhood of $3.6 to $4.5 million annually, depending on what level we want to maintain our streets. Streets are different from, say, a water utility or electric, where you actually pay a fee for that service, and based on the way our city budgets are set up, that fee also includes a set aside for those depreciation or asset maintenance costs. We don't have that same type of funding for street maintenance.
Okay. So when we go back out to the public to either refund or renew the sales tax for the streets, will there be more projects developed for the sales tax like we did before, or will it be more general?
So that's one of the discussions the mayor and council and their capital improvement committee are talking about, as well as the city manager. We still have those long-term transportation needs. We're always going to have to look at adding capacity to our streets or making changes to our streets based on traffic patterns. And we have the long-range transportation plan that's kind of our guiding document. An example of future projects in that is, say, Sanger Road from 19th to 6th Avenue. That road is listed in our master plan as something that needs to be widened in the future, basically to serve existing traffic and meet future traffic demand out there. But that's a different project from just that day-to-day maintenance activity that's needed for existing pavements.
Okay. Let's switch away from cars, because more than cars use our city streets. We are looking at and have added bicycle lanes and sharrows. How is the bicycling and cycling going to be incorporated into our transportation plan?
Sure. A lot of the work that you've seen in the past couple of years is there was a 2007 rails and bicycle master plan put together by a committee for the city, and that identified trails as well as on-street cycling needs throughout the city. And the first part of that was creating all these share the road routes. So if you've either ridden a bike or driven around town, you've seen a lot of these signs that have a bicycle symbol and then it says share the road. That was our first phase, and then within the recent last year, we've actually added some bike lanes. There's been some work over at OSU with the bicycle committee kind of sparking interest. Hey, we need more than just share the road. We need to start thinking about adding dedicated bicycle facilities. And we've also been looking at that internally with the city. A lot of our collector and arterial streets have been designed width-wise to, say, an interstate highway design, basically 12-foot interior lanes and 14-foot wide outside lanes. In an urban city, you can narrow those lanes down to 10 feet, depending on speed limit, and still serve relatively the same volume of traffic. And so on Hall of Fame and 12th, as part of, we have to refresh the pavement markings. We had that scheduled. We looked at those street widths and said, this is an area that we know we need some bicycle facilities. Is it possible to put those there? And so the result was the bike lanes you see out there today. Going forward, we're evaluating when we have those streets slated for pavement remarking, is it possible to add the bicycle facilities? And then as we update our transportation plans, we definitely will be moving away from kind of an auto-centric focus and looking at how do we integrate not only vehicles, bikes, pedestrians, but transit, trails, all those things into a more comprehensive transportation planning document.
Okay. Well, is there anything else we haven't touched upon that you think we need to talk about?
One thing I'd just like to share that we're working on the bikes that I think is pretty exciting. One difficulty about knowing where to put these bike facilities is it's difficult to count our bike traffic. We put tubes across the road, those are pressure sensitive, and we can monitor vehicles. We know where a lot of our vehicular traffic is, but we don't know what routes our cyclists are currently using. We're currently working on a smartphone app that will be available by this fall that will allow cyclists basically to click the app and then it will track their ride, and it's completely voluntary, but that ride information then gets submitted back to the city, and then we can start building an inventory of where people are actually cycling in the community, because we want to make sure we're putting facilities out there where they'll be best used by the community, as opposed to just saying we think if we put a facility here, cyclists will use it. And so that'll be a smartphone app. We'll have more information later in the summer, but it's moving right along.
And that will sort of give you an idea of where bicycle lanes need to be and help cyclists get around our community.
Absolutely, yes. It'll give us some information on what type of rider are you. Are you strong and fearless? You don't want bike lanes. You want to ride in traffic. Or, the group that we'd like to target is those folks that would like to bicycle but may not feel as comfortable being out on the road because they don't feel as safe and secure. And so are we designing facilities that would make it viable for those people to cycle? And the main reason, not only is it good for you individually to bicycle, but it benefits our whole transportation system. If we have more people using different modes, then we're not having to widen streets and build for increased traffic.